because everyone in the state of Arizona who works for you should be interposing and know and understand that doctrine as they erect barriers for you. The governor should know and understand interposition and know that he is supposed to be a construction worker, erecting the barriers, as James Madison said, and I have that quote in this book called The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. And I wish that wasn't true, but it is. If you don't get your sheriffs, the bottom line, if you don't get your sheriffs standing and erecting barriers, as we said in this video, and now another one with Sheriff Clark in it, titled, Are You a David?, where we did a press conference in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club just this past September on Constitution Day. And Sheriff Clark is a dark-complected American, as most of you have seen on Fox News. I call him my brother, who's a little bit more dark-complected than I am. And he is a very good friend of mine. And he's an amazing man. And you know what he does? He keeps one of these with him everywhere he goes. And he says, somebody will ask me some scholarly question about the Constitution. You know, probably Shane Krauser does that to him. And he goes, I don't know, but I'll look it up. And he gets this out. And he gives them to all of his deputies and so on. But what brought Sheriff Clark to the forefront of the national scene? Do any of you remember? He told all his citizens in Milwaukee to have a gun. He said, the truth of the matter is, we can't be there in time to save you and your family if somebody breaks into your home. And he did public service announcements on television and radio ads telling people to be armed. He's telling them the truth. Well, the chief of police got real ticked off. And he fought him. And the county commissioners fought him. And the county attorney fought him. And his own party fought him, because he was Democrat. Do we care what party he is? No, I don't care what party he is. I don't care what color he is either, to be quite honest. And he's taller than I am. He'd probably beat me in a game of basketball. I don't care about that either. What I care about is that he's willing to stand and tell the truth about the Second Amendment. And he said, even if it didn't provide some statistical analysis that provided you and your family safety, or the statistical analysis showed that it provides you and your family more safety, it's still against the law for anybody in government to try to take them away from you. It's against the law. And that's what I said in my book that I came out with 2 years ago, The Magic of Gun Control. And you can tell I've been a little bit busy. I'm always writing books. Shane Krauser has 2 new ones out. And I will tell you though, Shane's a better public speaker than I am, but my books are better than his. And I'll tell you why. Because this book, Are You a David?, answers the question, who's supposed to be a David today? Well, on the front cover, I don't have Sheriff Clark on the cover. I thought about putting Sheriff Clark on the cover. But I thought it would be even more intriguing, if not ironic, that I put a female sheriff from Texas on the cover. And I don't know if you can tell from there, but that's Goliath coming up behind her. And you can tell that she's got this. And she does. Her name's Sheriff Pamela Elliott from Edwards County, Texas. And she's been at those same meetings. And you definitely want to know about her and some of these other sheriffs. And man, oh man, I thought, well, this will be fantastic because I'm going to tell you and give you the real scoop that there is hope. It's already working. What we are doing is working. And every public official needs to read that book. Oh, but you guys don't, okay, unless you're a public official. No, wrong. You have to know what they're supposed to know. You have to know what they're supposed to do, because why? You're their boss. Joe Arpaio works for you. And let me tell you another problem we have here in Arizona. There is not one constitutional sheriff in this state. Did you hear me? Not one. There's some pretty good guys that are sheriffs. Some of them are friends of mine. But right now, they've been fighting against this idea. And every time the state legislature wants to pass legislation that the sheriff is the #1 guy in the state and that the feds have to check with him before they can do anything, the sheriffs campaign and lobby against it. Right here in Arizona. Are they a David? In some cases they are, some cases they're not. And mostly they're not. Because I'm going to ask you a question right now. I got a call from a guy, a very good friend of mine, who runs gun shows all across America. That's how I got to know him. I used to go to his gun shows when I was working for Gun Owners of America, and I would enlist people to join Gun Owners of America. Okay? So, this guy, I'll call him Rex because that's his first name, he calls me today and he wants me to come do some more shows with him. And I said, well, where have you been? I haven't heard from you for a number of years. He says, well, I had a real serious problem. The devil incarnate came to my door in 2011. And I said, you got attacked by the IRS? And he said, yes, it was the IRS. I said, that wasn't a far stretch to guess that. I said, what'd you do? He goes, nothing. I said, what did they think you did? He said, I broke the law about using too much cash. Yeah. He runs a gun show and has for 25 years. Same thing he's been doing for 25 years he was doing in 2011. He put $7,000 or $8,000, $9,000 cash from the gun show. Go figure. People pay in cash. And so he puts that in the bank over and over and over. He had $93,000 built up in that bank account. And the IRS stole all of it. All of it. And they came to him and they said, you broke this law about the using cash thing. He says, yeah, it says 10,000, but what we've found is that companies will try to finagle around the $10,000 threshold and just keep doing 7 or 8 and 9,000. And that's what you're doing. So without any hearing, without any probable cause, they take the $93,000. He hires 2 lawyers. They go to battle, and the lawyers say, we can work out a deal where you and your wife will get no criminal charge. Your company will be listed as a felonious company. Not you, not your wife. You can still own guns. And get this, and the IRS keeps the $93,000. Everything they had worked for their whole lives, the IRS took it and kept it. 3 weeks ago, there's another hearing. You probably didn't hear about it, because why would we care about another IRS hearing? And the crooks that you put in Washington, D.C. allow this to keep happening. And that's why I'm telling you, the hope is not in Washington, D.C. And any of you that think there is, and still are going to vote for these guys in office, and just, you know, I believe we have a couple of good congressmen from Arizona. Decent guys, decent individuals. But they're not stopping this. And I talked to them personally in Washington, D.C. when we were there on September 17th. Talked to him again when we went there in December to fight the illegal immigration by Barack Obama. Talked to our congressman. And I said, who's going to protect the American people from the IRS? The IRS admitted 3 weeks ago that they had taken $255 million from American citizens that they probably shouldn't have taken. They admitted it, and they apologized. And they gave none of it back. not a penny. And that we allow our congressmen and senators from this state to go along with this kind of crap, that is criminal activity from our own federal government. And the IRS has been committing these types of crimes for 40 or 50 years, and our congressmen and our senators do nothing about it. And this has got to stop. And so in this book, Are You a David? I ask the question, who is going to protect the American people in your county, sheriff, in Arizona, governor, state legislature? Who's going to protect the people of Arizona from the crimes of the IRS? Who's going to do it? And every one of you should be calling those people and asking them the same question. And Sheriff Arpaio should give you the answer. And I've already asked this to Joe about a year ago. And he said something like, you can't put all that on me. I said, why not? You're willing to fight Obama on several different things. You've shown tremendous courage. I backed you on a lot of that. We've known each other for a long time. We were sheriffs together 4 years. Let's fight. Let's fight this. Now, people say, oh, well, you know what, I don't want to be the only one. I don't want to be the first one. Yeah, nobody does. Nobody wants to be the Lone Ranger in any of this because they'll make an example of you. You know, I lost my job as sheriff over this, fighting the federal government stuff. And just so you know, in 1994, I sued the federal government. I sued the Clinton administration. I won a major landmark decision on the 10th Amendment, the most powerful state sovereignty decision in the history of our country. And if you don't have it, you should get a highlighted version of the case. This is it. And you should be passing this around. And yet Arizona has never used my case to tell the federal government to back off. But South Carolina has 2 or 3 times. Idaho has. Oklahoma has. Why isn't Arizona using the case? Are they oblivious to this? If they are, some of us need to wake them up, don't we? And your state rep should receive a copy of this from you. Mine already has received it from me several times. And we've got a lot of work to do. But it's here in Arizona. It isn't Washington. Washington is bought and paid for. It's a done deal. And they're not going to do anything. Look at history in Washington and tell me what they've done to restore constitutional liberties, to get the IRS out of here, to get the IRS off our backs, rein them in a little bit. They are doing worse now than they were before all their hearings. They're doing worse now. No one did anything about it. Republicans were pointing fingers and yelling at Lois Lerner and yelling at her replacement. Can't remember his name. Don't care who he is. Nothing will change except the name on the door until we do something here. Now, let's answer a real easy question, and that's in this book too. Who is in charge in Arizona of enforcing the 10th Amendment? Who's in charge of securing and enforcing state sovereignty? Okay, who else? How about county commissioners? They're supposed to stand for liberty or not? Of course they are. They're in a position to stand for liberty, and they have some power because we gave it to them. How about a mayor? Should he or she? Absolutely. How about the governor? How about the state legislature? How about state reps? How about school boards? Do you elect them? Then they work for you, and they have a duty to stand for liberty. The governor and the sheriffs working together would be just absolutely kick butt. Absolutely, no question about it. That would be impregnable. They would have total success in doing it. And we don't even need all the sheriffs, maybe half of them. We only have 15 here. Give me 7 or 8 sheriffs in Arizona who will stand for liberty with the governor, behind the governor. I'm really worried that this governor won't do it. Not seeing very good signs on that yet. But if they're coming in here and they're abusing Arizonans in this state, you're saying none of them have a responsibility to stand against it? Give me county commissioners standing with their sheriffs to protect you from the crimes of the IRS, or from the EPA, or from the FDA, or from the DEA, or from the FBI. I don't care what alphabet soup company it is from Washington. We have a responsibility and a duty, and we've sworn an oath in God's name that we will uphold, defend, and protect and preserve the Constitution. And we're supposed to say, oh, well, you know, I can't do that. I can't stand against the feds. Feds have ultimate authority, and they, you know, they can tell me what to do. No, they can't. If you let them, sure. Or if you take their bribes, sure. But no one is above your governor or your sheriff. No one. Your sheriff answers only to you. Do we really get that? The President of the United States cannot tell your sheriff what to do. They tried to do that when I sued them. The court, the United States Supreme Court, said I was right. They can't force us to do anything. This is absolutely the most amazing case. That's a $400,000 document. You can get them for $1. Why is that a $400,000 document? Because that's what it costs to go to the district court, the circuit court, the United States Supreme Court, paying for all the lawyers working on that for 3.5 years. Luckily, the NRA backed us on that, and they paid most of the bill. Absolutely an astonishing, amazing, miraculous case. And then the best book, Shane has 2 or 3 of the second and third best books. The best book in the country to explain all this, one, to explain to you who the Goliath is and who the Davids are supposed to be. And then you want to still ask this question to every one of your public servants and hand them the book and say, read the book, and then will you call me and give me your answer? Are you a David? And who in Arizona will protect Arizonans, the law-abiding Americans in Arizona, from the crimes of the IRS? That's an easy one. You could say federal government or federal bureaucrats. The easy one is, we know the IRS has been committing crimes for a long time against the American people. We even accept it. Oh yeah, that's what the IRS does. That's how they make a living. Sheriff or county attorney is a random audit, not based on probable cause, legal, lawful, and constitutional. Then why do you allow it to occur to people in your county? It happens all the time, and they're unlawful. They are criminal witch hunts. They're fishing expeditions, which are against the law in America. The Fourth Amendment does not allow the IRS to lawfully, randomly audit you unless they have probable cause, due process, or warrant signed by a judge. That's the requirement. Oh, well, we make an exception for the IRS because how else would they be able to go after tax cheats? I don't give a damn how else they do it as long as they follow the Constitution. And that's what the Constitution was for. It doesn't give exceptions. And what do our politicians in Washington, D.C.? They always make exceptions. Oh, well, after the war on terror, then we'll give you back your Bill of Rights. But until then, we just have to, sorry. It's for your own good that we're trashing your freedoms and liberties and what the Founding Fathers fought and died for. Sorry. No. So, the best book in America right now on that subject, Are You a David? Yes, ma'am.
What is the name of your book? I haven't got that.
Are You a David? This book? Yeah. Are You a David? Thank you. Are You a David? And then, bottom line is, which sheriff do you want in Maricopa County or whatever county you're from? Doesn't matter if you're from Minnesota, which I have right here because of the Tea Party people that had me speak there and did an article in their magazine. Doesn't matter if you live in Hawaii or Bangor, Maine. Which sheriff do you want in your county? The one that will stand and interpose on your behalf? The one that will erect the barriers? That he will stand firm? That he will interpose? You're here. The criminal is here, whether he comes from the street gangs of LA or from the street gangs of Washington, D.C. You here, citizen, law-abiding citizen here, you interpose against those pests in Washington, D.C., and you stand firm, and if they move to try to go after them, you move, just like in basketball. It's a defensive posture. It's peaceful, it's proper, it's lawful, and it's your sworn duty. And for sheriffs to sit back, or anybody else in the state to sit back and go, hey, I'll refer you to a good lawyer. Ask my buddy Rex how much he paid in lawyer fees to keep what was his, that the sheriff could have stopped in a matter of minutes or died trying. It's time to erect the barriers. And I have all sorts of tools for freedom. I have all sorts of tools out on the table for you to make this easier for you. Okay. So just so you know, I don't make this stuff up. We're going to go over just a few of these. How am I on time? It says 5 to 8. I can go till about 10 o'clock, right? Good. All right. Okay. No one answered me. Okay.
Just a few more minutes and then we'll open it up for questions.
Okay. All right. How about if I take some of the question time? Good. All right. Look what I have in my hand. There's been very few times that I bought a Time magazine. This is Time magazine. And this guy on the front died about 7 or 8 years ago. And he was a county commissioner. Remember what I asked you, if county commissioners should stand for liberty?
8:20 you can speak until.
I can go till 8:20. Okay, perfect. All right. His name was Dick Carver. He's from Nye County, Nevada. He died of a brain tumor. But this issue was October 23rd, 1995. See, because I filed my lawsuit in 1994, and he did something crazier than I did. He was a rancher and a county commissioner, and he also worked heavy equipment. And he was professional at driving a bulldozer. And so what happened in Nye County, Nevada, is that they had a big rain, and it washed out a mountain road that the people there had used for 100 years or more. And so they're going to go fix the bridge. They're going to go fix the road. And the BLM and the Forest Service says, you're not touching that road. It's not your road. This isn't your land. And you're not touching it until we do our environmental impact studies. And whenever we feel like getting it fixed, that's when it'll happen. And you stay out of the way. Well, the county commissioners got sick and tired of working with these guys. And the people who needed that road got sick and tired of dealing with this issue. And the county commissioners voted unanimously, 3-0, to fix the road. And so they also voted that Dick Carver would get on his bulldozer and go out there and fix the road. So they picked a date, time. They're all going out there. 150 people from the county went out there to support Dick Carver. And several agents of the Forest Service were there with their guns and whatnot and stood in the way. They tried to interpose to protect the road from being back the way it was. You always got to protect that. So, stupid bureaucratic red tape from Washington, D.C. is stopping the progress in the county, obviously. So, Dick Carver gets up on his bulldozer, and he's going to fix the road, and the Forest Service agents stand out there and said, you're going to be under arrest, you can't do this, stop in the name of the law. Okay? Dick Carver very patiently got down, went over to a couple of deputies and said, if those guys get in my way again, I want you to arrest them. And there's 150 people here that will back you up on it. So Dick Carver got back up on his bulldozer. Federal agents moved out of the way. He fixed the road. It took about an hour and a half. Done. They didn't build a new road. They didn't tear anything else down. They put the road back the way it was. Berms and all. Okay? That's it. Time magazine did a story about it. And of course, all the federal agents are saying, this is going to lead to violence, and we're afraid of this, and this is crazy stuff, and all Dick Carver does is pull a constitution out of his pocket and wave it around as his authority for doing this. And they're so afraid of the Constitution, they're so afraid of somebody willing to stand, that they're sitting there spewing all this propaganda about how they're so scared of this man. He was never armed, never threatened to hurt anybody. Do you know what he told them? I'm going to fix the road. Stay out of the way. I'm on a bulldozer. Okay? That's it. But they're screaming that it's so dangerous. The danger is only to their control and power. And somebody finally did something about it. Any of you ever heard about this? No. Dick Carver, 1994. Sheriff Mack, 1994. He and I became very good friends because we spoke at dozens of meetings together in the West. Some even in the East, most in the West. I love Dick Carver. You know what we need? We need about 500 of those county commissioners riding that bulldozer all the way to Washington, D.C. Yeah, but now, I wanted to also show you that Dick Carver wasn't the Lone Ranger. In my book, I start just talking about all these public officials who have done this. Have you ever heard of Sheriff Dave Mattis from Bighorn County, Wyoming? Back in 1990, maybe 96, he made a policy that every federal agent had to check with him before they could do anything in his county. Was he trying to be a big shot? Was he trying to say, oh, you federal agents, I'm going to show you who's boss now? All he was trying to do is create a check and balance so that nobody would come in and pull a Waco or a Ruby Ridge without him being involved in the process and trying to prevent his people from being victimized by the federal government. That's it, including the IRS. And at one point, he actually stood, interposed, in the county recorder's office and would not allow the IRS to put liens on people's property. Because you have to do that through the county recorder. Told the IRS to get lost. Don't come in here doing that. You don't have the lawful authority to do that. Get lost. And then the next step, he did the check and balancing of check with me before you do anything. Okay, that was Sheriff Dave Mattis, way back in the early 1995. Sheriff Glenn Palmer, 12 to 15 years ago, he started standing against the Forest Service, closing roads on public lands and issuing tickets for people clearing out forest dead wood. Yeah, because they didn't get their permit. They did not subject themselves to the Forest Service whims and licensing. And so they would have to drive 5 hours to Portland to federal court to pay their fines or to go to court or contest or whatever. And Palmer stopped that all. He stopped it all. Sheriff Glenn Palmer, Grant County, Oregon. And then Sheriff Jeff Christopher out in Delaware fighting for the position of sheriff to make sure that the state of Delaware, under the tutelage of Bo Biden, yeah, Joe's son, well, they're trying to destroy the office of sheriff out there. He stood and fought them, took it all the way to the state Supreme Court, and lost. And then lost his re-election bid in Delaware. And after I did the Brady Bill suit, I lost my third election. There might be casualties along the way. You do the right thing anyway. If the only important thing is keeping your job and keeping your pension, we're going to lose this battle. And I guarantee you, Joe Arpaio does not need any more pension than he has now. Okay? It's okay to go ahead and risk that for him. Okay? Some of these other sheriffs wanting to keep their federal grants, their federal bribes, so they won't stand against them. They won't interpose. They won't erect barriers because they're afraid they'll get their funding pulled. The funding is nothing more, and you can read that in this book, is nothing more than a federal bribe. Legalized bribery. That's all it is. You think the federal government comes out and steals our money for nothing? No. They're buying something with it. And they're buying influence, friendship, and loyalty. And they know. And this was just 4 or 5 weeks ago, the sheriffs and chiefs in this country got a letter from Jay Johnson, the head of DHS, and he said, we need all of you to lobby on our behalf, or at least to support us in some way, because he knew that there was a bunch of us sheriffs that went out to Washington to lobby against the amnesty that Obama's doing for the illegal aliens. And so he says, we're going to pull your federal grants if you don't back us on this deal. And it was public. He didn't even make any bones about it. He's admitting what I've said in my books for years and in our DVDs, that these are federalized bribes. That's all they are. And there's no such thing as a legalized bribe. Okay? That's a term they use. Legalized bribe. Well, okay, we're just like the IRS. We can do whatever we want. Who's going to protect the American people from that? We have to. And we better wake up and make a bunch more Davids here in this state and in your county. How do we take back freedom in America today? How do we take back our Constitution? How do we take back America? County by county and state by state. Hopefully, one sheriff at a time, working with we the people. That's the important part of the Tea Party, is that we're active, we're doing, we're involved. We don't just come to meetings. We get involved. We follow the book. We interpose with him. Just like the people going there with Dick Carver on that day to fix the road. Okay? And so, have you heard about Chief James Craig from Detroit? Detroit! He's telling everybody the same thing Sheriff Clark is. Make sure you're armed. We can't be there. And then Chief Craig, James Craig from Detroit, said, I don't want to take away any of the good work that our investigators are doing, but I think part of the drop in crime, and robberies in particular, is because criminals are thinking twice that citizens are armed. And he has encouraged it. And it even shows on YouTube, this lady yelling out to the thugs breaking in her back door that she's got an AR-15. And they yell at her, no you don't, you liar. We know you don't have no gun. So she fires off 3 rounds, and the video shows these guys running. Oh my gosh. Just an absolute masterpiece of beauty that she was able to defend herself, didn't need to shoot anybody, just needed to make sure those guys really knew she had it. She was home alone, her husband was at work. Amazing story. And then Sheriff Nick Finch in Liberty County, Florida, has a citizen get arrested for merely having a gun in his pocket. Mere possession of a gun. Is he a prohibited felon? No. Is he a criminal? No. Was he planning on robbing or hurting anybody? No. He was driving home. And the deputy arrests him because after he pulled him out of the car, he was now in violation of the concealed carry permit laws of Florida. As he was sitting in the jail, the guy who was the manager and supervisor of the jail, Sheriff Finch, walked in, read the reports, talked to the officer, talked to the victim, the citizen, the law-abiding citizen that was sitting in jail, and said, hey, why don't you go get a permit? He said, would you do that for me? I would have told him no, but Floyd Parrish told the sheriff, yes, I will. You got a deal. And the sheriff dropped all the charges. Nullified. Have you heard that word? State nullification. sheriff nullification. The sheriff nullified the arrest, released the man and said, go and sin no more. Of course, he didn't sin in the first place. But he let him go and told him to watch out and go get your permit. The state heard from the corporal who arrested the guy, said his mean sheriff nullified this arrest. He's hurting my numbers. I had this arrest all good and solid. I got the guy. The state did an investigation and arrested Sheriff Finch 3 months later. Arrested him and booked him into his own jail. The governor, Rick Scott, suspended Finch, so now he has no salary and no way to pay for his defense. We come in and do a fundraiser. CSPOA came in and did a fundraiser for him and his family, gave some of the money just to his wife who was working, but there's no way that she could provide for the whole family and make sure the house payment was good. So we raised money for their personal needs and also for his lawyers. And 6 months later, I was at the trial in Liberty County, and Sheriff Finch was found not guilty by a jury of his peers. And he was restored to his position 15 minutes later. This is a good man. Now, then Sheriff Brad Rogers, 3 years ago, calls me, and he'd already had our constitutional training. He's probably the best constitutional sheriff in America. He calls me and he says, hey, one of my Amish farmers is being harassed by the FDA, and when the FDA comes in, of course, do they have warrants? Do they have probable cause? They're doing spot inspections on these horrible criminals who won't pasteurize their milk. And folks, you can't let that go. If you let non-pasteurizing Amish have full reign, pretty soon you'll have wholesome dairy products all over the country. And so they just can't let this go. So they come in and test his milk and take it to a lab, and he passes everything. Of course, what do the Amish tell the FDA? Sure, come on in. They're passive. That's what they do. 5 times they let him in. Then the FDA get really upset and their pride gets hurt because they never found anything wrong. So they indict him. They want to take him before a grand jury and indict him. They don't even know why, but they're going to. You know, hurt their feelings thing. And so Sheriff Rogers contacts the FDA and he says, I hear you've been bothering this Hostetler guy. They said, yeah, is he a friend of yours? No, he says, I don't even know him. He says, the Amish don't vote anyway, so don't try to pull that. He says, you guys been coming in and doing this without even checking with me. I didn't even know you were here. They go, yeah, we have complete authority and jurisdiction. And the sheriff goes, no, you don't. And so let me ask you, he said, did you follow the laws of due process? They said, no. He said, did you have any probable cause to go on this man's property? No. We asked him and gave us permission. So what would you have done if he said no? They said, we'd have gone on anyway. Did you have any warrants? No. And he says, right now, who's your supervisor? Who's the head guy over this? They gave him, he contacted him and he said, if you or your agents come in my county again without due process, probable cause or warrants, I'll arrest you for trespassing. Arrest you. So what did the FDA say? You think you're going to arrest us, Sheriff? We're going to arrest you for interfering. Obstruction of justice. Felony. We're coming right after you. Sheriff says, help me prepare a response to him. Just you and me. 2 constitutional sheriffs. I said, all right. We sent that to him. Quoted all the laws and everything in there, and case law. One of them was my decision, the Mack case. And 3 days later, the Amish farmer gets a certified letter in the mail that everything has been dropped and the FDA has not been back in over 2.5 years. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask it again. Which sheriff do you want in your county. Do you want the Sheriff Rogers? Do you want the Sheriff Finch? Do you want the Sheriff Palmer? Do you want the Sheriff Clark? What kind of county commissioners do you want in your county? Do you want the Dick Carvers? There's been other pretty upstanding county commissioners. We've had some of them in our conferences, and I think there's at least one in here that was one of our speakers. This is some miraculous stuff here. But we have to make this bigger, better, and faster. And you know that every single one of you can join the CSPOA? Every one of you. And this is the sign-up form, and it's out on the table. Now, if only 2 or 3 of you join this, I'm going to think you're really not wanting us to do what we're doing. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm going to think that you really don't want us to keep doing this. If you don't buy the books, I'm going to think the same thing. I'm going to ask you, are you willing to take the same pledge that the Founding Fathers did? They pledged to read my book. Just want to make sure you're awake. No, they didn't. But I sure quote them a lot in here. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to the holy cause of liberty. Will you do the same today? I'm not saying you're not if you don't read my book or buy the book. I'm not saying you're not if you don't join. I hope you are. Because what we're really after is not membership, but change and behavioral change from our elected officials here. So that they will erect the barriers against the encroachments of the national authority. And when Jefferson and Madison talked about state nullification, they said it is the state's duty to interpose. That's where I got that word. To interpose its power on behalf of the American people to prevent them from being victimized by the federal government. They said that way back in 1790. They knew what was coming. They've seen it before. They devised a constitution to prevent that. They dedicated their lives to this. Some died for this. I see this as a fantastic moment for us to unite. I'm asking you to join us in this holy cause of liberty. And let's work on these miracles together. The NRA has about 5 million members. We are focused on one of the few remaining solutions that all of us have. Gun owners or non-gun owners. That all of us have left. There's very few solutions. Very, very few. You can count them on 2 fingers. And if we don't enforce state sovereignty and the 10th Amendment here in Arizona, we will lose the American dream. We will lose our Constitution, and we will lose any semblance of the principles that our Founding Fathers left us. My dear friends, I was at the Bundy Ranch last April. Do you know what they're having this April? A celebration on the Bundy Ranch that they've survived a year. And I'm only going to be able to be there on Sunday, but I'm going to go. And the thing that I was impressed with the most is that there was a family there who loved each other, who loved the Lord, who loved their country, and were willing to die for liberty. Then the other paradox and the huge contrast was their sheriff would do nothing to help them. Nothing. Yet over in Nye County, they had a sheriff that interposed on behalf of the Hague family. H-A-G-E. It's all documented in here. Wayne Hague, a rancher in Nye County, had his cattle confiscated, and then the sheriff stopped it. And the BLM and the Forest Service came to get more. Wayne Hague went to court. Wayne Hague died. because this thing lasted 35 years for him to stand for his right to have his ranch. And the feds kept fighting and fighting. And finally, a district federal judge ruled in the Haig family's favor. Wayne Haig didn't see it. His children continued to fight. The judge said, in no uncertain terms, that the BLM bureaucrats and agents and the Forest Service BLM and agents all committed criminal conspiracy, racketeering. Who usually commits racketeering in this country? Yeah, the mafia. Yeah, and congressmen. And so this judge is saying that the federal government committed all these crimes and referred some by name over to the Justice Department for prosecution. Did that ever happen? Of course not. They didn't. And they still came after Wayne Haig's family after they did this. But this sheriff, Tony DeMeo, went there with the Haigs when they were trying to confiscate their trespassing cattle, as they said in the Bundy situation. He said, "You're not taking any cattle." And they said, "Sheriff, you get out of our way or we're going to arrest you." He says, "I'm not getting out of the way, and neither my deputies." He says, "Well, then we're coming back." This is the BLM telling the sheriff, "We're coming back with our SWAT team." And the sheriff said, "Fine, I have one too." And they never came back. And they didn't take the cattle. And the Haig family won in court, and then we're all wondering, well, the Bundys lost in court, so of course they're breaking the law and we need to get rid of them and they should hang them up. No. The Haig family already won, and yet they wouldn't back that same case up when they went. I don't know. Maybe bad lawyers or whatever, I don't know. But they were representing themselves, and so did Haig. Haig represented himself. He couldn't afford any more lawyers after 15 years. These crimes are going to continue, my dear friends, if we don't do something about it. And I'm going to ask you right now, join us in this holy cause. Donate more, do more, read more, share this with other friends, get the tools that we have here, get involved in the process. We can save America. And I know that you want to do that or you wouldn't be here tonight. And that's what I want. I've dedicated my life to it. I put my heart and soul in this, and my heart has started to give away. And I need some more backup. That's where you come in. And I'm going to continue to do this battle until it stops. And that's my pledge. Because I think freedom and liberty in America and my precious little grandkids are worth it. And you look in their precious eyes and you ask, what are we doing with the stewardship we've been given to make sure that they live in a free country? And I will tell you, there's a big fight on the internet about me. I'm even trending on Facebook because I refuse. You got it there, Jim? Because I announced publicly that I oppose Obamacare and that I won't take it. And now I have 100, well, yeah. Well, now guess what my hospital bills are? Over $130,000. And so somebody started a GoFundMe thing, help Sheriff Mack on GoFundMe. That's the link. And the reason I bring this up is because now they're assailing everything I stand for. And do you know who's donated the last $15,000 to that account? Liberals. Because the only way that you could tell me off on that site to make a comment was to donate. And some of them even donated over and over so they could keep telling me off. I never responded. It's not my site. I didn't do it. Okay? But now they're saying, well, Sheriff Mack wouldn't take Obamacare and thinks that's horrible and he doesn't have any compassion or charity for anybody else and blah, blah, blah. Let me make this very clear. Government-forced charity was never and never will be charity. If it doesn't come from your heart, it's not charity. And it's not compassion. And now what do we have? A nationalized socialistic healthcare plan that the IRS enforces. And if they can fine us, they can jail us. And that's coming. Mark my word, that's coming. And so this one guy is interviewing me on national television about this, on RT, Russia Today. And he says, don't you feel a little bit silly now, not having it? He says, aren't you going to go get Obamacare right away? And I said, I almost died. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'd rather die before I take that. And I said, I will. We'll work it out. We'll work our bills out. But you can't restore freedom once you lose it like this. And this is a horrible Marxist communistic plan that is taking over control of the American people on something that wasn't broke in the first place. And so